They think they did something wrong and they need to be better. And I tell them, even Michael Jordan had a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just here to help you become the best version of yourself and win the finals.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host Regin, and today's guest is Dawn Mahan, an award-winning consultant, best-selling author of Meet the Players in Projectland, and the founder of PMOtraining.com, with over 20 years of experience leading Fortune 50 transformations, advising executives, and developing project management talent across industries. Dawn is on a mission to make project success simpler, smarter, and way more fun. She's the creator of Project Flow, a gamified learning system that helps people master PMI's complex methodology through storytelling and design thinking. As a globally recognized speaker and the mind behind Meet the Players in Projectland, Dawn brings a fresh, engaging lens to leadership, culture, and execution. And it's a pleasure for me to have her on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Dawn.
Thanks so much for having me, Regin, and for that wonderful introduction.
Thank you for coming down. It's a pleasure for us to have you on. So I wanted to learn more about your beginnings when it comes to coaching, and we can talk about consulting as well. First of all, what inspired you to do this, to start your coaching and consulting business and become a coach in the first place?
Well, I love that question because it really took me back. It was by accident that I became a coach in the 3rd grade.
Mm-hmm.
So my teacher, who I absolutely loved, and I still remember her name, Mrs. Shea, she asked me to help this other child who was actually a 1st grader, but who was so smart that he was in our 3rd grade class. And this kid was being picked on, and he was just really struggling on the social side of being in 3rd grade as a 1st grader. And he was very, very messy. His desk was a nightmare. And so she said, "Will you please help him?" And I don't know why she chose me at that time, but she must have seen something in me that said maybe I would be compassionate and I would bring him along and I would help him and be his friend. And that's what happened. And that continued to happen to me in high school and college. And then in my first real job, I found that the training was terrible and I couldn't learn the way that it was being trained. I was the only woman in in a class of coders, software coders, that we were meant to solve the year 2000 problem. If some of you know about that, they had to launch a lot of people to code and fix all the software around the world that was dated with 2 digits instead of 4, because when the year turned 2000, the computers wouldn't be able to do the math anymore on dates. So they were trying to teach us coding with basically on a whiteboard. I couldn't learn that way. And so I went to my boss and said, "Can I work with somebody that knows what they're doing with this software?" Because it was really hard, very difficult software to learn, and create something that I can learn it and then I can share it. And he said yes. And so it just kept coming up over and over again for me in my life, that then I turned the corner and became a coach over and over again as well.
So you're basically a refiner when it comes to processes on training, and it all makes sense actually. So throughout these years, and thinking about both coaching and consulting with your clients, when it comes to coaching specifically, and going through the coaching journey with your clients, what about it do you find the most rewarding since you started doing this?
Well, what I love the most is really about helping people see their greatness inside themselves, because a lot of times when people get a coach and they're in corporate situations, they think it's a punishment. They think they did something wrong and they need to be better. And I tell them, even Michael Jordan had a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just here to help you become the best version of yourself and win the finals. So then it's like, oh, okay. And when they realize that that is exactly what I'm trying to help them do is just become the best version of themselves and give them all the tips and techniques that I've learned the hard way in doing projects for years and years so that they don't have to struggle as much, then they really can turn the corner and accelerate. And when they feel it and they had a great day or they had a great interaction or their project turned that corner, and I get to hear about how they felt successful, not just were successful, but felt successful in themselves. For me personally, that's the most rewarding.
Do you think that people, because this is interesting, that a lot of people actually, and this has come on the podcast also in the past, that when they are assigned a coach, they think that there's something wrong. Why do you think that is?
Well, because I think when some of us were growing up, it was, well, if you have to go to the principal's office or if the teacher has to talk to you, you're in trouble. And it only happens when you're in trouble. They almost never take you aside and say, you really did a good job and let's spend a half an hour talking about how you did a good job. It's the
Mm-hmm.
opposite of that. And so I think some of us innately, me included, feel that, okay, I must be punished here. Like this, I have to take
Mm-hmm.
extra time, I'm being singled out, etc. So in corporations, when people are assigned coaches, and this happens in our business a lot, we make it a point to make it very clear to people that that is not the reason they're getting a coach. They're not getting a coach for remedial help. They're not getting a coach because they don't know how to do foul shots, on the basketball court. They're getting a coach to just help them meet where they are and help them get better. And maybe because they are seen as a high potential performer and we want to invest in them to help them be even better. So if that's the message that somebody gets, it's very different and they still might be skeptical about it until they feel that it's true.
Interesting, because oftentimes it's also been the case where sometimes coaching gets confused with therapy or something like that. And people think, oh, well, I don't have any problems, so I don't need really the coach. And yeah, so that also been like another perspective of it. So right now, for anyone who's listening and that audience that is either leaders or executives that are listening, we mentioned on the intro that you are working with leaders and companies. So how would you specifically describe the ideal client profile? Is there a certain specific industry that you typically like to work with or happen to be working with? Or is there a certain demographic? How would you describe it?
So it's interesting that you ask about industry because I have worked in all kinds of industries because projects are happening everywhere. Projects are
Mm-hmm.
happening in old businesses like Campbell's Soup, new businesses, startups, nonprofits, for profits, governments. I've worked in across the board. And all of the things that they struggle with, many of them are very much the same struggles because projects are the same in that it's the first time in the history of the world anybody's done a project
Mm-hmm.
because the definition of a project includes that it's unique. And so you're going to have struggles. It's not going to be easy. There are going to be questions and so forth. And the people side is the same. So when you just mentioned therapy, I don't know how many times somebody has been in a coaching situation where they've said, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in therapy right now," because
Mm-hmm.
there's just unloading everything that is happening with on the people side and their struggles with it, especially. And it's okay because who else can you trust but your coach to keep that confidential and to help you through it? And so does happen many times with us where people will feel like they had a little therapy session and then they can go on their way and do great things having gotten that out of their systems.
And it actually makes sense why it's often confused is because there are some similarities between coaching and therapy, and there's often therapists that also become coaches. It just happens naturally to be a transition. We've had some of those in the podcast as well, and it's also like, for example, the confidentiality part of it, which is both applicable in the therapy and in coaching. Both of those aha moments can happen on therapy and in coaching. So it's pretty
Yes.
interesting. It's just like not as deep as in therapy, or it just doesn't go to maybe, well, it might go personal, but not to, I guess, not to childhood or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, the focus is a little different for sure. As far as the industry wide, it doesn't matter. But as far as the person goes, we need people who are coachable. So some of these executives that we work with are not coachable. They think they're the smartest person in the room. They very, very well may be the smartest person in the room many times. But if they're not listening and they're not taking into account what the coach is saying that might be helpful to them, then what's the point? So people have to be coachable. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Why do you think some people are not coachable? Is it all ego?
That's a great question. I think a lot of it is ego. Sometimes it's just they don't feel they have time to really dedicate to it, and sometimes they don't have time. And so whatever it is that's getting in their way, whether it's they think they have all the right answers because they've been a smart person and successful person in the past, that can get in the way because to them there's proof that, hey, I've been a successful person. I've gotten to this executive level. What can you do to help me? And what's interesting, what I always find interesting about that is, I look a certain way, right? You and I talked about this in prep. Like I look a lot younger than I am, and which is, hey, great in my personal life, but not so great when I'm sitting across the table from somebody who has a lot of experience and looks like they have a lot of experience, right? And so I've struggled with that my whole career, is looking how I look, and especially in some of the male dominated industries that I've worked in tech. I have a mathematics degree that tends to be surprising to some people, et cetera. And so that's been very interesting dynamic as well. But I found that the people that are just open to learning, they're continuous learners. They read a lot of books. They love to know some strategies from outside the walls of their organization. And they really would, they listen to the experience and take it into account. And they might challenge and ask questions and so forth. But then when they see the value, it's like there's a saying called, the show me state. There's a state that the motto is the show me state. And I feel like we as coaches many times have to live in the show me state. Like the value has to be there. We have to show and prove the value, but can't do that without the other party, the coachee, doing their part.
Interesting. So this is a very interesting point you're bringing in. And I wanted to ask you, when it comes to these clients that you feel are not coachable or not ready to be coached, how do you get into a situation? Because I can assume that they're the one asking you to come and coach them. How do you get in a situation where they're the ones that are like, oh, why are you here? So is it like a higher level that is hiring you to coach them?
Yeah, oftentimes that's the case where the CEO has said, we're going to change the way we do projects in our organization, and all of you need to be a part of this. And a lot of people that feel they're successful, they'll be like, yeah, that's great for everybody else, but I'm good.
I see.
And so they're not really welcoming this. It's just like, if somebody says in the family, hey, I'm going to go vegan or I'm going on a diet, it's like, yeah, that's nice, but I'm good. Like, I don't want to participate in your idea of what good looks like because I'm good. So this is why the messaging before the coach even shows up is really, really important to set the stage properly in those kind of situations.
Interesting. It seems like they say no from the start, and it's just like, but you're still getting in the company because the CEO thinks. So it seems like there's some like misalignment with the CEO and like whatever the person that is actually going to receive the coaching is.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. This and the CEO, sometimes they don't want to have these conversations with these people. They have other things they want to do. They have other priorities, and they don't want to deal with the situations with these people. That's why they hire us to help make things better and help the project engine work better. And a lot of times the reason it's not is because the people aren't all on the same page about what's expected, how we're going to get projects done in a healthy way, create a healthy culture that gets results, all that kind of thing. And people don't like to look in the mirror a lot of times.
So the only way for you to turn that around is actually to prove that this is actually a good thing almost with every session.
That's a huge part of it, is the proof. But the first thing I do is I just try to get a sense of, where are they? Are they open to this, or are they not open to this? Because if they're open to it, we can jump right in. But if they're not open to it, then we have to do a little work ahead of time to get a sense of where is their head at, right? And what kinds of things are they trying to accomplish? Are they concerned about? And a lot of times there can be a very disarming question in the beginning that just says, look, I know that your boss is making us talk today, but this is your time, and I want to serve you in the best way that I can in our time together that we have. So is there anything on your mind that I might be able to help you with, even outside the scope of why we're here today because your boss said we had to be? And it's just sometimes it's a very disarming sort of situation, like, oh, maybe I could, yeah, hey, you know what? Let me ask you about this. And sometimes they'll try to create a question that they don't think you can answer. Just because then they can go back and say, this person doesn't know anything, right? She can't help me, or he can't help me. It can be a tricky situation, but with experience of dealing with executives for a long time, you kind of know how to respond.
But it's so counterintuitive for the coach to answer, because the coach is not there to give you the answers, right? It is for you to trigger, for you to find your answers yourself. It's not that I'm going to give you the answers. I'm going to help you find the answers yourself, right?
Yeah. And they're like, I have all the answers. I'm good, right? Like that's how a lot of people in this situation thinks. However, some of what we do is a mix of mentoring and coaching. So it's not only a coach guiding you to get the right answers. It's like, if you think about, Michael Jordan, one of the best basketball players of all time, he had a coach who could tell him, because you can't see yourself playing ball, right? You can't see yourself how you interact with other people either. Unless you have a mirror in front of you all the time, which if you're in person, you don't. Now with the screens, we kind of do have a mirror in front of us. I can see myself as we're talking today, Regin, but most of the time, that's not the case. And so I feel like with executives, a lot of the way that they can be effective is through their presence, the way they ask questions, their knowledge of the situation, the way that they engage. And there's a very special way that we coach executives in how to engage in projects. We don't want them to micromanage ever, but we especially don't want them to micromanage in project situations or react in a negative way when projects are going off the rails, for example. So we have the training and coaching to help them be very successful, what we call project sponsors. And I find that it ends up being, the coaching sessions with them end up being more of a blend of coaching and mentoring. Yes, we try to get them to find their own answers, but sometimes they have no clue because they've never done this before. And so I can share with them, a story about another project and say, how do you feel in that situation that was handled? Might that help you in your situation? And then it gets them thinking, because they might be totally stuck if they've never been here before.
Well, you are also in a very unique place, because you're a coach, but you're also a consultant. Sometimes you do give the answer because you're not just coaching. Do you find that oftentimes you have to just switch hats?
Well, I think that there's so much of blend. It's not really hat switching as much, but it is. I do have to remind myself, for instance, with executives, especially when I started with the coaching side of this, that if I'm not in the project, I'm not close enough to the project to have the right answer. So all I can do is say, hey, there was another situation where this is how a similar situation was handled, and share that and say, that worked well over here. Do you think that that might work for you in this situation? You know best, you're closest to it, you know your people best. Let's talk that through. And then they'll arrive at their own answer, but I might have had to trigger them in their thinking a bit by giving some different examples from different industries or different types of projects where they need to find a solution.
Wow, it sounds like very complex. When you think about it, you'd have to, because you don't have all the context all the time in the project.
And most coaches, I don't think, do have all the context. I mean, how could you know every intimate detail about a person who's in front of you? You know, you don't know what might trigger them from their childhood, or what might, what might be a situation for them right now in their life. So you can't know everything. So it is good practice, I think, to just assume that you don't.
Absolutely. So right now, and this goes to the research, and it's also important for the coaches who are listening, when it comes to you finding your clients, what marketing channel works very well for you?
Well, there's a lot of, on the business side, where it's more at the organizational level, there's a lot of that happens. So the coaching is baked into the consulting engagement so that we can help every person that's critical to the organization learn how to be great in their roles and understand the difference between projects and their day jobs. And that is very confusing to people. But then on the individual side, sometimes it'll morph. So like, for example, there was an executive coach that called me this one time and said, Dawn, I'm coaching this wonderful executive at this hospital. She's a high potential. She's running the vascular division of the hospital, and she's down in the weeds too far. And I know that she needs some of this project management magic that you have to help lift her up out of the weeds and empower her team more. And so that was a great relationship. This executive coach, giving us the entree to this person. And then in the end, what was really amazing is we really did lift up her whole team, empower her whole team. She got out of the weeds, and then they recognized her by giving her the neuro division and another division. And she was able to handle it without having to work 24/7 because of some of these tools. So sometimes, there's a complementary coach that might be a good referral for if you have a special expertise like we do. And that it's also good because then if you know your person, your coachee needs help in a certain area, and you're not the best person to give it, but you have a relationship with somebody who might be, that can be great because then you're still in their life. You're not passing them off. You can make sure that they're still good and you can still focus on your expertise, but then they can also get the help that they need.
Interesting. So it's referrals, and you also, because of your consulting business, you also offer some of the coaching on the side. But when it comes to the consulting business itself, is it also referral?
Sometimes it is, yeah. And what's interesting about today's world, which is different than when I started my career, is that people move around a lot. And executives move around a lot. So, for instance, there have been several times where an executive that I worked with in the past moves jobs, goes to a new place, looks around and calls us up and says, hey, you got to do it to me again. Because in this new place, it's a mess and you need to help organize everything. And I know your process works. And so that's been very interesting too, is this sort of repeat offenders, as it were. They keep coming back based on their new place that they are. The other thing that I wanted to mention is in speaking. So I'm an international speaker, and sometimes people will find us that way, and say, hey, wow, we really need some help in this area. Will you come talk to us? And sometimes that turns into training, or some mix of training and coaching, or some mix of all of it, consulting and training and coaching. So you just never know. And we always try to listen, which is a big coaching element, isn't it? just really listen to what is their situation, meet them where they are, and help them get where they want to go.
Cool. And so what about yourself? What about your coaching and consulting business? Where do you want to go for the next 1 to 3 years? Is there any specific goals you're working towards?
For me personally, I want to do more writing and speaking and take the coaching clients very carefully that I know are coachable. And, I really am excited about helping them get to the next level personally. So I can only take so many of those people right before my bandwidth doesn't work anymore. I'm very careful for myself as to how many coaching clients I take on. But also I've been teaching for many, many years a signature course that is practical project management. And it's now has a certificate and people love it. Companies send their people to it over and over and over again, new people as they come into needing to do projects well. And so one of my focuses in the next 1 to 3 years is to create the evergreen model so that there is a blend of that course and coaching and people can come in when they need it. Because as it is now, my bandwidth, I can only run it, twice a year or so. And that's just not enough because the timing doesn't line up for when people need it all of the time. And I'd like to be able to offer it in a way that's more flexible for people. So that's
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That's great. And so where do you see the challenge in doing all of this right now? Where do you see the bottleneck?
Me, I'm the bottleneck. My bandwidth is tight. I am very highly scheduled, as many of us are. And I have recently learned in the past year or so that I do not want to give up sleep anymore. So when I was younger in my career, I pulled more all-nighters in running my own business than I ever did in college because I felt like that's what I had to do. I think people are a lot smarter today than I was when I started out in making a higher priority your own personal health. So I've been working on that. And so I don't want to give up my sleep and I need a little more R&R. And that means I have to be very careful about my time and prioritizing, which is exactly what we coach people on.
So you don't currently have like a team or some help that you're getting? Is it all you?
I do have a team and help, but there are certain clients where, I'm definitely engaged a lot. And so trying to transition that more to be able to do more of the speaking and the writing part is really the next focus.
So how does the team structure look like right now? I'm always curious to learn because you have a unique setup. So how does it look like?
Yeah, so you have to remember that projects end. By definition, projects end. So when on the consulting side, we may consult on a project, but there's an end. I mean, you do the project, you're done. And so we have a roster of experts who, when somebody might call me they knew me from, 20 years ago when I was a project manager and they said, will you project manage this? No, I will not. However, I know somebody who will, right? Who will be even better than I am. And then they're like, thank goodness, whatever, that's fine. Can they be here on Monday? So sometimes that happens in that way as well. So on the consulting side, because it's projects, that's a little different. And then on the training and coaching side, then it's about finding the right match and finding the right person. If it's not me, then it's, one of a roster of people and trying to make that right match, because it's not just, as I'm sure all the coaches listening know, it's not just about your expertise, it's also about your style. And really feeling comfortable with your coach and having your coach feel that they can help you. And so we want that match.
So it's not like you having full-time people on your team. It's more like associates, you're saying?
Right.
Okay, cool. So we're getting also to the final question, which is when thinking about the other coaches, what advice would you give to other coaches who are looking to scale their impact?
Well, one thing that I wanted to offer was that, it's something I'm working on myself. So I have two things here. One is when you're looking to scale, don't just look at what other people are doing and it appears that they've had success at.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go inward and think about what works for you as well. So, for instance, I'm looking at, okay, I need to redesign things so that I have an evergreen process and, people can access it. But there are certain things I don't want to do because I know I'm going to dread it. It's going to drain me and I'm not going to want to show up and give my best self and service to people. So I am really looking at how I design that in a way that is uplifting to me as well as, that is going to rub off on the offer for people as well. So what do you want to get up every day and do and not dread? That's the first part. The second part is one of our coaches wrote a book that was published by Wiley called Be Hopeful, Be Strong, Be Brave, Be Curious: How Coaching Can Help You Get Out of Your Own Way and Create a Meaningful Life. And I just loved her book. I love her. Her name's Ruth Pierce, Earce. But I had this conversation with her about, mentoring versus coaching. And I discovered with her that, I personally end up doing a blend of that. And that book is very small, but it's like a masterclass. And so, and it may give you as a coach some words that you can use in how to explain the benefits that you can bring to someone and also help them understand how to work with the coach and so forth. And so it could be just a very helpful resource. And she wrote it because there weren't any books like this on the market at the time. And it just came out pretty recently. So this is just another thing I might offer to other coaches.
And what about your book? How does that play a role in your consulting and in your coaching?
Thank you for asking that. Yeah. So my book is, and I can show it here for anybody that's in the video version, is Meet the Players in Projectland. And so the players are the people and the different roles. What I've discovered over many, many years in working with clients is that the best way to structure a project is to make sure everybody knows their role and knows what to expect from everybody else. And so how could they possibly be great and in a project if they don't know what their role is and what's expected? And so people have written beautiful testimonials about the book saying, hey, I'm a project manager or I'm an executive, and this book is going to help me help my people do better. And so it can be a great resource if you're a coach, and you hear of people struggling on projects at work, or, a project just landed on their lap and they're not sure how to handle it. This can help you help them be great at their role, identify what it is, understand what's expected, and then how to work with everybody else.
And for everyone who's listening and would be interested in something like that, they're having project management issues. Typically, what are some of the challenges that are covered in the book? Meaning, what can go wrong in a project?
I love that question because the answer is terrible. The answer is that statistically, most projects fail. So that's, oh, wow, right? Oh, wow. So most projects fail, which means the odds are stacked against you. And in the beginning, and at the very beginning of the book, I talk about some of the statistics around projects failing and the reasons why most projects fail. And I'll give you the sort of summary answer. It's because of the people. It's not because they used the wrong process or they didn't have the right tool or they didn't do their Gantt chart right. It's about the people, and coaches help people. So coaches, I ask you to please help people who have projects on their plate be the best project people they can be.
So you would say it's the people. And when we say people, if we were to look a little bit deeper, would it be communication in that case?
So it turns out that communication is 90% of a project manager's job. And communication amongst a team is really important, right? Yeah. For, in the whole aspect of it, at the beginning, when you're trying to figure out what is this project, how are we going to accomplish this mission? What are we trying to do again? And then in the middle, where everybody's storming and norming to try to get up to performing, and they're trying to work together and solve problems together. And then at the end, when there are all these nervous Nellies and perfectionist Pats that are like, oh no, we're not done yet because we didn't cross this T or dot this I, right? And so the communication challenges morph and change and are a little bit different with a different focus along the way of a project life cycle as well. So yeah, communication is key. But a lot of times it's because the executives, which is why the executive coaching is so important, they never went to sponsor school, which is why I created a sponsor school, because they are supposed to magically know how to be great project sponsors and nobody ever trained them to be that. That's not fair, right? So it all starts at the top many times, but then even, the project managers, certainly there's lots of training out there for project managers, but it's not always practical, which is why I have practical project management training, because it's all about the humans and managing those human emotions along the way, managing what the humans do. And yes, of course, processes and tools can help, but it's the people who will make or break your project.
And if you could leave us with a statistic, because I feel like this is going to be an interesting title, what was the percentage of failure for projects?
So 0.5% of projects. Yes, and I see your face, your shocked face. Half of 1% of projects hit the budget, the time, and meet the outcomes, all three. Half of 1%, based on a study, and I know you're an analyst, based on a study of 16,000 projects.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So that is a big study. And
wow is right. And it's terrible. And most people don't know this. So that the odds are stacked against you. Because in the beginning of a project, people are like, hey, we're going to have this project. We're going to do this great thing. It's going to be great. And they don't realize how the odds are stacked against them.
Interesting. So the mindset should be kind of like being aware that that is the odd that you're fighting against.
Absolutely. It's very helpful because it keeps people on their toes.
Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Dawn. And thanks so much for coming to our podcast today. This was lovely. For anyone who wants to connect with you or find you, they can go, one of them is on LinkedIn. They can go on LinkedIn, look up Dawn Mahan. They'll be able to find you there. I think there's a few websites here, but it's pmotraining.com, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of them. And to get a free sample of the book, which covers the statistics in that sample, you can go to projectgurupress.com/sample and get the sample emailed to you immediately.
Cool. So projectgurupress.com/sample is where they would go.
Yes, perfect.
Cool. And we'll also put that into the description so that people can easily click on it. But yeah, thank you so much, Dawn. Thank you for coming.
Regin, thank you so much. I enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that it helps some coaches out there. And please do definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear that you heard the show and you found some value in it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.